Very fresh. I can't have it.
Whoa.
You can't have any candles. It'll sit on this too long.
I'll tell you what.
You made it sound like, yeah.
Everybody's got company.
You made it sound like you've already done it.
First couple months.
You've already done your toothbrushing.
There he is.
I left my phone on. I did it for an hour yesterday, and I come back and say, see, I have to share a stuff because I in my camera. And now it's not working.
Committee will come to order. This is a meeting of the Littlestown Area Board of School Directors. This is a meeting of the board taking place in the public in accordance with the Sunshine Act. District residents who wish to address the board are required to sign up to provide public comment at least 5 minutes prior to the start of the meeting. Public participation will only occur during the designated public comment portion of the agenda. Disruptions, interruptions, outbursts, or other disorderly conduct of any kind will not be tolerated. By attending and or commenting publicly at this meeting, you're consenting to the district's recording, retention, and future viewing of this meeting. Colin, please call the roll.
Janelle Ressler.
Here.
Mary Brenneman.
Here.
Alan McCall.
Here.
Here. You had a great list there. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, there's no public comment this evening, and Dr. Merriman's not here this evening. Unfortunately, she's under the weather, so I'm kind of flying solo. But I have wonderful help of our building principals to give us an update on secondary school information. So we will start with Mrs. Golden.
I'm gonna do the
and
front
Dr.
now, and
Becker.
Dr. Becker's gonna do the back. Good evening, how's everybody? Have a nice holiday break? It was long and it felt nice and long this time, which was nice. And of course, Dr. Moyer just gave me a butterscotch candy in my mouth. Thought it would take more than 2 minutes before I had to stand up now. All right, so good evening. So tonight, Dr. Becker and I are gonna share with you just a very, very brief snapshot of some of the work that we've been doing with our teams around our building merge for Littlestown High School, Littlestown Middle School. If you could go to the next slide. So you have seen briefly, I know, and maybe had some questions about the bell schedule. I think Dr. Berryman may have shown it at a work session or a voting meeting. I think we were in ACE's library. I think it came up at some point. So what we want to do today is help you to understand how that schedule was shaped and how we intend to leverage some of the features in that schedule, not only to meet the needs of middle level learners, but also high school learners at the same time under the same roof. So as you saw in the schedule that Dr. Berryman shared, and I do have it on the next slide in a moment for you to look at again, you saw that we had the same exact bell schedule, grades 6 through 12. And I just want to help make it a little more clear maybe to folks the reason why we went down that path. And I'm sure you realize this, but by the time we move into that building, we will have been working on these projects under our 5th superintendent, right? So under different leadership, and I think we're on our 4th high school principal. So under different leadership, as time has gone by, and the vision for this building and this programming has changed as leadership has changed. So we tossed around 100 different bell schedules. That might be a conservative number. And they sometimes weren't even the same between the middle level and the high school. Sometimes we just said, you know what, forget about it. We're gonna have our own 2 separate things because we can't figure out anything that works for the full grade span. But we have come to a shared schedule, and these are the reasons why. The logistics around lunch. So there are a couple of things to consider. Of course, it's a large cafeteria, but it only holds so many kids at a time, right? And if you have ever been in a middle school or high school cafeteria, you know just because it could seat 500 doesn't mean you should put 500 in there, right? For a lot of reasons. There are different food guidelines for different grades of students. So without going into great detail, 6th graders do not get the same meal and same dietary requirements that an 11th grader is allowed to have. So it would be very difficult to serve grade levels of students who require different dietary guidelines at the same time. And also thinking about, as we always have been thinking about, ways to maintain middle school and high school identity, making sure that we're not mixing our youngest ones with our oldest ones. And so for a lot of reasons, lunch being a big one, it made sense to go to a shared bell schedule where we're gonna roll through 4 lunch periods and not have to have what I think ACES has, which are called bathing lunches, where there's overlap, which we did consider at some point. Another thing was instructional minutes. Currently, and Dr. Beckler will talk more about the high school, but currently, the schedule that we have decreases Maple Avenue's instructional minutes by just a little bit, and I think increases the high schools by just a little bit, and we'll talk about that when I show you the schedule. But we really had to think about our students and think about the experience we want them to have, how long we wanted them to sit in classes. When you have an idea of how long you want them to sit in class, that dictates how many periods you can have in a day. How many periods you have in a day impacts not only the core, but the elective classes students can interact with, and in the high school, that impacts graduation requirements. The more or less classes that you can take in a day, in a year, in a semester, ultimately and cumulatively, has impact to whatever your graduation requirements are. Intervention time at Maple Avenue, we have math and literacy intervention available to the students during the day. The high school didn't have anything like that, and trying to figure out ways to get high school students intervention time during the school day. Again, back to the graduation requirements, we had to consider those. The minute we talked about the high school dropping a period, 1 less period in their day, again, that's 1 less course a high school kid gets to take every year, right? And what does that mean? And does that matter? Shared staff. So currently we have a nice hearty handful of staff that are shared between Maple Avenue and the high school. And which is wonderful that we can do that because we're so close. But what happens in reality is every single one of our teachers who we share can teach 1 less instructional period a day because that teacher needs time to travel. And I know it only takes 5 minutes to travel down, 5 minutes to travel back, but you can't do that in a period that you're supposed to be teaching. So if we went to a shared schedule, we can continue to have our shared staff, and then each of them would get back an instructional period during their day that we could use as we saw fit. Middle school having access to high school courses. If we were on 2 different schedules, it would be difficult for middle school students to access high school courses like Spanish or algebra that they currently have, but now we have the opportunity to share. If the bells don't ring at the same time, the classes don't switch at the same time. So having a shared schedule allows us to maximize some of those opportunities for students, and they'll continue to grow as time goes on. And simplifying Sapphire, what we mean is that Sapphire is our, where we keep our student schedules and our courses, and so we've been able to work with the company of Sapphire to have it function as one school in the sense that when you log into Sapphire on the administrative end, you're just logging into one place. There's not like a Littlestown Middle School Sapphire and Littlestown High School Sapphire. It'd just be the Middle School, High School Sapphire. But we still are technically 2 schools under that umbrella. They're able to kind of merge them, and so that really helps with scheduling because we can kind of schedule as one big building. So for example, with our shared staff, if Mrs. Jackson's teaching Spanish for me first period, Sapphire will know that Mrs. Jackson is teaching Spanish first period, and the high school can't schedule her then because it's scheduled as one big building because we share a schedule. So all of this to say, these are the reasons why after years and many iterations of the schedule that we landed on one where the middle school and the high school have the same exact bell schedule. That was probably way too much information, but that's the story. Okay, next slide. So here it is again, and for those of you who haven't seen it, so I'm only going to talk about the middle school, even though it is ultimately the same schedule. I'm going to talk about the middle school to help you to understand how similar and different it may be to what we currently do. So you'll see this is a 7-period day. with an 8th period added on the end called flex, which is a little bit shorter. Instead of being 45 minutes, it's a half hour. Currently, Maple Avenue runs a 7-period day. They're about 50-minute classes. So we are decreasing each instructional period by 5 minutes. Okay, we currently have a homeroom. We have 3 periods of lunch right now. We're going to be going down to 2 periods of lunch, which is definitely doable in the cafeteria in the new middle school, high school building. Then we have that 30 minutes of flex at the end of the day. So as I've said, we currently have literacy and math intervention classes that kids can be scheduled into during the day. So formal interventions like that don't necessarily, for the middle school kids, have to exist in that flex period. During flex period, students it could potentially look like a study hall. Like if I'm a kid who's not missing a test or I don't need help with my science teacher, I could use my flex time to do my homework, right? Or if I was absent yesterday and missed the math test, I can go to my math teacher and that's when I retake my math test. If I'm a kid who's struggling with finishing my science lab, I could go during that time to my science teacher. If I need help with my reading assignment, I could go to my reading teacher. So it's a very flexible time that students can have their needs met and get support, but it's not necessarily those formal interventions that they get during the day. That also can be time for us to use when we do our PBIS rewards. Currently, we do like an hour and a half reward every 6 or 8 weeks, and we run a modified schedule. What we could do is use our flex time and just like period 7 every 6 or 8 weeks to use for our reward time. We could do our monthly morning pride meetings, which we currently run, and it eats into first period every month when we do that, which is I think time well spent, but nonetheless, that is time that comes out of first period every month. Now that can exist during flex. We can do our character ed lessons during that time. A lot of things can potentially happen during that time that would just give another layer of safety net and intervention for students. The other thing I want to mention about the decrease of instructional minutes, as much as that really wanted to be a hill I was going to die on, and I tried, didn't I, Dr. Becker? I really did try. One thing that I did come to realize is 5 minutes can be a long time, 5 minutes cannot be a long time, depending on what you're doing with the time, right? So we need to make sure that we're focusing on using our minutes wisely. But as our students, and especially reading and math, spend probably about 8 minutes a day working on iReady, and that's in their instructional time right now. So if we use some of our flex time throughout the week to do their iReady pathways, that could come out of reading and math class, and they're actually going to end up with more instructional minutes than they have right now. So that, I think that flex time will really benefit us, and I encourage you not to maybe dwell on the loss of 5 minutes per period, but think about kind of ways that we could get that time back in other ways through the flex period at the end of the day at the middle level. Any questions about what I shared or specifically about middle school before Dr. Becker talks about the high school and then some other items?
Just a question.
Yeah.
You're saying 50 minutes for instructional time, I'm saying 45.
Right, 50 minutes is what we currently have. So I'm saying it's just a difference of 5 minutes.
And how, do you all have the same number of periods at the middle school?
Yeah, so currently we have a 7-period day. So nothing about a middle schooler's, thank you for bringing that up. Nothing about a middle schooler's schedule or programming will change at all. They still have the same amount of core classes, lunch, they still have access to their interventions, the same amount of electives. We're not adding or gaining anything like that as far as courses go, except for just that flex at the bottom. And the way we did that was just by saving 5 minutes a period.
So the earliest lunch is probably going to be about 20, 25 minutes earlier than it currently is?
That's about, yeah, like 15 minutes. Yeah. So I think, I think right now it's 10:20, just a couple minutes.
That's a bit earlier since I was back here. It used to be 10:30 was the
Oh yeah, it's 10:20
earliest
now.
lunch. And we were like, this is more like brunch, breakfast.
Yeah.
There's not really a whole lot that you can do with that, is there? Because they're pushing you're pushing the high school towards the end of the day almost.
Well, yeah, I mean, one of the things to keep in mind also is that the ladies and gentlemen in the cafeteria do benefit from time to reset a cafeteria.
Mhm.
So I've been in situations where there's no buffer time between lunch waves, and that is a big ask of a cafeteria staff when there's no time between. So if you do condense the amount of time in total for lunches, meaning from lunch A the whole way through lunch D, that's your only way of doing it, and I think you get a much better capability of lunch staff to provide the lunch appropriately and clean the tables and do the things you need to do to have a clean space for the kids to eat at, which, again, I've seen situations where they're combined closely and it starts getting very dirty. It's, in my opinion, a much better situation to have it start a little bit earlier than to have it just condensed lunch.
And there are just like little logistical things when you're working with schedule. Like if you were to shift lunches, say like, oh, we could just push everything 20 minutes down, right? So that the first lunch starts at 10:27 and the last lunch ends at 1:27 or 21. But now you've got lunches in the middle of periods. Do you know what I mean? So like
Every minor move changes.
Yeah.
yes. So it's not just as easy as shifting, because then you think, well, now you're losing all of that time in
Basically gotta
transition.
move a block.
You got to move up by a block.
Yeah.
And you can't move it a block up, or that would be worse, right?
So,
to move it
yeah.
up or back a block. So
I just think also, I'd just add that as we educate our parents and students, if you are a lunch A and you're involved in co and extracurricular activities or a club after school or sports and whatnot, you're going to want to make sure and bring something along to hold you over a little bit later on in the day. And then also, if you're eating during lunch D, you're going to want to make sure that you definitely have some breakfast there. You're not going to. So I just think I think this is a really doable schedule, and I commend you all for working out all the nuances.
So my question, second one would be, for the flex period.
Yeah.
What made you guys decide to want to go towards a model like that as opposed to just having another full period?
I will not answer for the high school. I'll answer for the middle school. If I had another full period at the end of the day, I'd say, what are we going to put in it? I would need teachers and courses and more things to fill it, right? And there was no need at the middle school level to offer any more courses than what we have now. And the students have their 4 cores and a period of what I call the mandatory electives, phys ed, health, careers, and 2 periods of their own choice electives. So would we create another class, or would we give them another round of electives? It just didn't seem like we needed another course at the middle level. So what I was perhaps advocating for early on was to keep a 7-period day and keep them around a 50-minute class, very similar to what we have now, because originally I was thinking, well, middle school doesn't need a flex period because we already have interventions built in. But then when Dr. Becker did a very nice job helping me understand the possibilities of what you can do during that time, I was like, oh, right, okay, so maybe we don't do math and literacy intervention at that time, but think about all the other things we can do that we were robbing time from before, and now is built in. And at the very bare minimum, for a kid who I said is totally caught up and needs absolutely no help at all, then sure, it could be a study hall.
Do you all still have, you may not be, because I haven't been there.
You're gonna say ACE, aren't you? Okay, so this was another thing. So what you're alluding to is at the very end of the day, Maple Avenue used to have a period called ACE, and it was kind of like a study hall. That's when the band and chorus kids went to band and chorus, the support kids went to support, and everybody else was in their homeroom in ACE, right? And doing pretty much nothing, right? So that was problematic for a lot of reasons, because if you were a learning support kid, and that's when you had your support, then how did you do band and chorus, right? Like too many competing interests at once. And if you weren't a learning support kid or a band and chorus kid, you basically had a bunch of wasted time, right? And so I had a really bad taste in my mouth about bringing back something like ACE, and I was concerned that Maple Avenue teachers who have been there as long as I have would also share that. But again, I think we need to be committed to the structure and expectations of what is really supposed to be happening during that time, and not let it devolve into just free time for no reason. But I think we have a lot of good suggestions of how to purposefully use that time at this point.
And how are the students gonna be, like, how is it determined where the students are gonna be?
Yeah, so Dr. Becker will talk about this briefly, but I'll just give you the simple answer. In Sapphire, there is like a flex tracker sort of thing where, I don't know the exact nuts and bolts of how it operates, but kids will be assigned to a place for flex. And if my math teacher needs me to make up a test, my math teacher can flex me, and it'll show up in Sapphire that my math teacher is requesting me for that period. Or on the contrary, if I need to go to my math teacher, I can ask to be flexed to my math teacher. And so that when you get to wherever you're supposed to be on that given day, your teacher can pull up a roster of who's actually supposed to be in front of them. And it can be day-to-day that flexible.
And would the base level assignment be your homeroom?
Whether it's homeroom or whether it's where you were for 7th period, or whether we mix it up based on, oh, I'm stealing all this thunder. But whether we try to, who knows how we decide to assign who your flex is, but you would be assigned to a flex as your
Mine will be in their 7th period class.
Right.
So they will not move. So one of the concerns would be, and I can speak to this.
Switch.
Yeah. So mine would be in my, so specific to flex, just to give you, I know you're in a unique space in that it's not long since you operated under what is the current 11 period system up in Littlestown High School. I don't want to speak ill upon that schedule. I'm not trying to do that. But what I would say is when I got here, we're worried about instructional time and the amount of time that they're doing things. There is far more non-instructional time in that schedule than there is in this. Based even with that half an hour flex. So one of the things I noticed when I got here was I had certain color for when a teacher was doing coverages, and there's a lot of that in our schedule at the moment. And the fact that we have that many periods results in a lot of kids having study halls. And we have high numbers in study halls. And not that study halls are bad, but they're not always the most functional time if not used properly. And we have a lot of kids that are just kind of hanging there while they're in study hall. And they're peppered throughout our schedule, and there's a lot of them. So our flex period, the way that would look, and I can get to everything here in a minute, but our flex period, the way it would look, yes, in 7th period, they would be in that period. One of the concerns that you could have was, well, if it's a junior and you know you're not flexed to something, I get up from 7th period and I just leave instead of going to flex. No, they're responsible, they're gonna be in 7th period. The only way you get up and move is if you are flexed to a different room, right? That's the only time you go. So yes, that flex schedule, the way it will work is that teacher in the room can look at your students and say, hey, you, Mr. Lovell, you go here, you're going, and you're responsible, and you can tell them where they're going, and then you know that the ones that you have flexed to you are coming to you. I'm gonna be plain and simple. I've been places where a flex time has worked and where it hasn't gone, right? So 2 schools ago, it wasn't that strict. We did not have a schedule or we didn't have things, and it was poorly managed, plain and simple. So it can happen, right? I'm not gonna tell you that a flex time can't go poorly. I was at Southwestern and the teachers banded together and made it happen, and they had a 5th period that was a flex, and it was beautifully done, right? It is our responsibility to make sure that the teachers are responsible to do it properly, and every single teacher is responsible to do what they're supposed to do. If I'm a health teacher and I have a student that missed a quiz, I'm responsible to flex that student to me to make sure that they get the quiz done, right? Because right now, if you think about it, if a student misses 3 days in a row of class and they're absent, it's hard to get that kid caught back up because there's nowhere in our schedule to do it at all. And if they're in a study hall, they can't go down to your math teacher and find out and get help because that teacher's teaching, right? But this time opens everybody up to be able to help each other that they can go. What we can also do is we'll have competition for who's flexing people. That could happen, right? So you'd set up a simple cycle of 5 days where day 1 would be your math opportunity where they trump everybody. Day 2, day 3, all of your core courses, electives on the 5th day, so that you don't have the problem with people crossing it and trumping each other in flex. So this has all been spun in the head and we know where we're going. The only thing we need to do is we are already scheduled with Sapphire in order to get the training to make sure that we know how to get that going properly, because we are well into the process with Sapphire. So flex, again, our responsibility, really, I'll be honest, came from me because I've seen it run well, and I do not have an opportunity for my kids to do second chance learning right now unless they stay after school, which isn't easy. The other thing that we could do with flex, spring and fall and spring sports, not that it happens that often, we're an early sport, but they miss instructional time when they leave, right? Not anymore. right? They wouldn't miss any instructional time if they leave early, save for like golf that leaves really early because they have to do a full round, right? So that takes that out. There's a lot of positives to it. Does it need to be watched properly? Yep, 100%, and that's my job, right? That's why we're hired to do the job. Are there any other flex questions? Probably talking a lot about flex.
Well, I think we covered.
I talked too much about flex time. So up on there, so if you, one of the other interesting parts is the color basis. Anything that's yellow is where it's shared time. So that's a nice situation. You can see how much that we could go back and forth and we could utilize each other's staff. It's the majority of the time up there, right? The other thing about the lunches that's a little easier, if you're familiar with our schedule right now, we have 3 lunches currently at the high school, and it will be more full, it'll be fuller, right? It's gonna look different. That's just the nature of us bringing this together. But the nice part is we can balance that extremely simply. Right now you can't. Between those three lunch waves, it's very hard to balance them, and we have 1 real big lunch in the middle and 2 that are smaller on the outside, and you can't just slide people around. With that situation, both middle and, well, no, it'd be just high school. With the high school, if I have too many kids in lunch C, all I have to do is go to a lunch C teacher and say, go tell your kids that tomorrow they're eating lunch D. It's all under the same time frame, and it's fixed, right? You have 2 balanced lunches. So that is something that at Upper Adams that we did at the high school in Biglerville, and it works very easily. Like I can schedule the lunches very, very simply, so it's a nice thing. We did come back in instructional period for this to match. So there were a couple things. What I went into, I was interested in finding that time for intervention for my kids because there was no time for them to do it. I think, I don't want to speak for Mrs. Golden, but I think she was concerned about a lot of change she's already going to undergo, in my opinion, the mass change of the 2. I am taking responsibility, and I've talked to this about our teachers. It's not our responsibility necessarily, but I look at it kind of as, it's our responsibility to make sure when they come in, they're comfortable with where they come and knowing that they are who they are and we're there to help. So one of the easy ways for us to do that is say, we're gonna make some adjustments to make sure that these schedules match up properly, and we can make some adjustments to do that. And my counseling team's phenomenal and is already understanding and knowing the direction to go to make sure that kids aren't losing opportunity, A. B, I'm not gonna muddy the waters with some concepts that I have for electives that could possibly allow us to get more opportunity. We're not doing necessarily this year, but we're gonna get a look at what it looks like this year, just scheduling the way it is. And some things I have in my mind already that in case we're feeling like we're missing opportunity, I think I have other options that we can possibly go. I just don't wanna muddy the waters now. Also, I wanna put a little bit of a thank you to Mr. Preetz, my assistant principal, is a math guy, and this is harder than you think, right? You can't just you think you can just throw in AI and it's gonna spit back out a schedule this day and age. It's not how it works, believe it or not. And we sat, and this was my vision of what it was looking like, and you're sitting there, and sometimes I'm like, woo, when I start getting, and we sat down, and he came back one day, he was like, hey, what do you think? And I was like, oh, you nailed it, right? So good on him, because he got the numbers right on this as well, which, believe me, is more challenging than you realize, to be honest. So again, that does come back that one period, but we do have opportunities still for the kids. Basically, it changes 2 classes worth, right, through their entire credits. So what it'll be is a 23. Right now, 23.75 would be the graduation requirement based on this. What I'd like to do is get that to 24, and we're working on some functional possibilities of the classes we could add to make that at 24. Because I think when you sit down with a parent and say it's 23.75 to graduate, it's a little bit like, what? Like that doesn't even make sense. So if we can do some things to do that, plus we have one other opportunity we're possibly looking into of making that quarter. It's just, we have to be able to back that up with another quarter credit class. You can't just sprinkle them in nowhere. I'm gonna flip on to the next screen, Mr. Showbaker. So what we've been working on so far, what we've done. First, I'm gonna skip down kind of out of order. I'm gonna go to that 4th bullet because I already talked about this stuff. The building, the master schedule, and flex scheduler. We have already met with Sapphire, I think 3 times virtually with the gentleman there. And it is funding that was already there, that we had already purchased, so you have the hours and the time with them. So this is costing us nothing that was already not there. That we were able to get with them, and they are basically going to create and take things and create the Sapphire combined schedule. And that's huge. Like, we can't have the ladies in the office that are administrative assistants, and a kid comes in for attendance and they have to flip between 2 computers or go back between middle and high school. That's crazy, right? So it'll all be in one place, and they're going to be able to help us manage that. and get that flex scheduler going, we're well into that process, because at a high school level specifically, we need to be pushing into classes to start getting schedules and kids choosing their courses in January, right? So we're already into that process so that we can make that happen. So again, the counselors are phenomenal. And again, Erica's great and she's new to us, but I watch Mrs. Group and Mrs. Poole in our high school, and Mrs. Golden does it on her own, but she'll tell you to watch what they have as far as their knowledge of our high school. It's pretty impressive. Back up to the top. Some of the things that we've also done, you guys may or may not be aware, we did talk about this to some degree, but we have securely passed in the high school and the middle school. And we got that in this year so that we were prepared for next, right? We wanted to push that, and I was really excited to get that in. So that is basically a digital pass system right now that determines where the students go, and we know how many times they leave the classroom. We can see that, and we can, like, for example, if we know Johnny and Timmy don't do so well in the restrooms together or around the hallways, you can literally set a limit that certain kids can't go out at the same time, just some things we can manipulate so that we can lessen the problem. But what that will do is allow us to, now, obviously physically it doesn't put a rope around them and keep them in a certain place, all right? But what it does is designate specific restrooms where they would go. So our 6th graders upstairs in that 200 area will be designated to that restroom. So there is not a reason in the world that a pass that's red, because that's the pass for that area and we've designated colors. If we have anybody that's a teacher standing in the hallway or looking out and they see a 6th grader walking with a red pass, it's like, what are you doing, right? So we can quickly get on them and make sure that they're in the right place and make sure kids stay in their general area. Are 6th graders ever gonna cross a path with a senior or junior? Yes, I'm here to tell you it's not possible to never have them cross a path. They will ride a bus together and as well. But we are limiting as much as we possibly can. So you can see the next one, grade designated hallways and stairwells for travel. Our stairwell in the new section, right, that you can see the stairwell from the football field that goes up and down, that will be limited to high school students. There's not a reason in the world any middle school student ever needs to use that stairwell because of their locations and what they need to get to. So that will be known. If you're a middle school student and you're in that hallway, it's something that we need to address and say, why are you there, right? Because we can designate that with our colors and the things that are there. When they're in passes, we'll be able to see that, and that's something we'll be working on this summer to make sure that we have. So we will do that with our hallways, with our stairwells, with our things as best we can to make sure that we have some control over what it looks like. Grade designated hallways, I already said. Building, community, and staff, things we're working on. So again, difficult. We have a limited amount of time. We honestly thought we were going to be getting together on the 19th, 2 weeks from yesterday, right? Turns out we're not. We're going to be bumping that to the March, where we're bringing our staff together. So we'll do some things with the lunch and have a little bit of activity together. Not that these folks don't know each other in a small district, but again, a little bit more time to spend together. And I think early on, we're going to have to at least carve out some time in our in-services next year that we're doing combined activities and such to make sure that those things happen, to have that staff community within the building. Skip the next one. Administrative assistant roles and responsibilities have already been, they are structured at this point, and we have met with the administrative assistants and they are aware of what their responsibilities are gonna be as it stands right now, right? We could get there and realize that this isn't working for this reason and everybody's flexible enough. We have administrative assistants that are, in my opinion, fantastic and very flexible with what they are willing to do and help us out with. And we have spent the time to do that. I think you're going to have people that we've honed in on strengths of those folks, and people that have spent a lot of time mastering something that we're not ripping that away and giving it to somebody else to relearn. It just makes sense, and it's going to make them more efficient because they have things they can focus on. Right now, if I'm plain and honest, there's quite a few stretches this year where Lisa Krause was in there doing more than she should have been, right? And this will allow her to focus on some of the things that are happening. She's one of my favorite people in the world, and I was worried about her, right? So it's fine in making sure that we have the ability to do those things and get people in the proper spaces to help. We will make sure that we have the nice part about the drop off and pickup, it's going to be pretty simple. So obviously we have the new loop in the back that's going to be for our parent drop off and pickup. And they'll be able to come in that back door, and it separates from the buses in the loop. Right now they're together for the high school, and it's really not problematic, but once the middle school gets at it, it would be. So it's very simple, and we'll send out that information, but the drop-off pickup for the cars will be in the back, closer to the track, that new loop, and the buses will be in the front loop. We will get that out. we talked ad nauseum regarding the focus period expectations. So I'll make sure that I'll skip that. Finally, I think one of the smarter things those counselors I talked about looked into and have put into place, specific to the 9th grade transition, I have not been somewhere where we had a counselor that was an 8-9 counselor. This is the first time I've seen that. I've not heard of that other places. I think it's fantastic, right? I think it's absolutely phenomenal idea that they put in place. And Erica Long is fantastic and is doing a great job, and it really bridges a gap. So she is able to know the 8th graders next year when they're coming into 9th grade. And not that you're not going to have problems with transition, but I think you are going to see that make a huge difference in that transition. So us working along with the middle school as far as having that bridge with Mrs. Long, and then obviously we will have to make sure that we work with the 5th grade group because that transition looks even bigger now, right? So what are we doing to push down and make sure that we're prepared for that? How are we getting those kids into the building to see the building beforehand, to make them as comfortable as possible? Walk through, here's where lunch is, don't get worried, know where to go if they do have a concern, all the things we can do to get them in a good place. That was a lot.
I'm going to add just a couple of things. I think the good Lord brought us Dr. Becker at this time. His experience in a grade configuration similar to this before is really invaluable to us, and all the nuances that he learned from that. I was impressed when I first started here. Nate's assistant Andrew showed me on his computer some possible schedules. So they've been working on this for quite some time, and it continues to evolve. I've also worked with the board on a pretty long evening, I would say, where we developed some goals collaboratively. So in that last bullet point there, one of our goals, if you recall, was that we'd really like to see, what's happening in that transition to make sure those 6th graders and 9th graders are successful. And what's really nice to see is that Courtney and Nate are also aligned with our thinking. And I think you're going to be pretty impressed with what they come up with in that regard. And that's going to help our school board, because of that alignment, realize at least one or more of our professional goals that we're going to put out there really soon. And I think it's actually going to be part of our winter newsletter, which is really coming together really well. So I'm just, anybody out there in TV land or live streaming, look for our winter newsletter coming out later on this week. But I just want to commend Courtney, Nate, you, Kara, and Andrew, your counselors, and the team for jumping on this so early and really fine-tuning it. I think we're going to be able to deliver a really first-class instructional delivery to our kids here at Littlestown. And
Can I jump back in for something?
Sure.
I think the message that we want to send to you all and to anybody is I know it's going to take trust and faith, right? But just to know that we are being thoughtful, right? We are not just going to let this happen willy-nilly. We spend hours every week working on what the future will look like and be. So I'm just saying out loud for people to know that we're not just going to move up there and see what happens. Like, this is just a small list of things that we are constantly working on to make sure that this is successful for our students.
I do think Courtney's going to feel, starting next school year, you have died and gone to school heaven when you see when you and your team experience. And I would just say this: the construction project, we're in the late stages of phase 3. We're already working on a punch list, and I mean I know it's a lot of money and so on, but I think you all are really moving in the right direction, and it's going to be a first-class facility as well as an instructional delivery. And I'll say this: it's the people that make the difference, not the building. But the building and having a beautiful building certainly doesn't hurt.
Climate control in it.
Courtney brought up a point of it's the 4th principle and how much time. And what I will say, if you all see fit to allow me to continue to stay, I don't intend for there to be any turnover in a long time, and I'm very excited. Like, I think I know, and I hope she would agree, it's a place where if you don't have 2 people that work well together, that this could be challenging. And I could not be more comfortable in our situation. That's not a problem, right? So as long as you see fit to allow us to stay, I think we can provide something that'll work really well for the kids.
Well, thank you for all the time and work that you guys have already put into this, planning ahead. Obviously, you care very much about our students. Just a quick question. I know, period, like 11 period, is this gonna change like the late in and early out for the seniors?
No, it actually would be able to look the exact same. Oh, the other thing it does is, I didn't mention, we have all those B schedules. Yeah, they're going. Yeah, so I mean, like, yeah, I don't have to change a bell schedule every time I wanna have a meeting. I will it during flex time, right? I mean, that's the other thing, like it's funny, you talk, like we think about, well, flex, it changes every time. We have like 22 B schedules, which does the exact same thing already, only I have to change the bell schedule every time we do it, which is nuts to me. So that can't be 100% of the time, don't get me wrong, but 95% of your meetings and the things that you would do with B schedules, you can just now do during your flex time.
What's your plan with a 2-hour delay? Are you gonna have a whole second schedule, or are you just gonna start it?
We'll just have to condense the periods based on what it looks like, yeah. But what you could do, and again, we have honestly not gotten those numbers yet. Like, I don't have the timeline for like what they look like on an Act 80 and the 2-hour delay. We were focused on getting this to Sapphire and getting it done, so I'm not gonna stand here and say we have that. But different ways you can go with that. Do you just take the time from the flex and you don't have flex on those 2-hour delay days? Probably, right? And you slip that into your other periods to make sure that the lunch is still fit and the things that are there. That's probably where we go, because it doesn't happen that commonly that you're taking that much time. So most likely what we'll do is we'll rip time away from that flex in order to sprinkle it into the other times of the day, so that we don't lose as much, because you don't want like 15-minute periods with these kids on the 2-hour delays. That would get us down to 30-some. Generally, is the way that it tends to function.
Mrs. Cole,
Yes.
I wanted to ask you while you were standing at the podium, with the band and chorus kids, when are they gonna be doing that?
So just like they do now, I know you're accustomed to, like I said before, when they had mini course during days, now it's scheduled during the day, just like at the high school.
Okay.
So currently, it's like 4th period now. Next year, who knows which period it'll be, because we don't have to share Mr. Bish across buildings, so middle school band could be anywhere it fits in his day. But it's a scheduled period during a kid's elective slots.
And ours, I'm sorry to jump in there, ours, what I intend to do, unless it's completely undoable, which I don't see it, and we already talked with counselors and I did things. Obviously, Mr. Bish was a little concerned because if they have fewer electives time, are they not gonna do band or they're not gonna do this? So what will happen is if you flick back to that schedule, so what we can do is band's gonna be 7th period, right? So now he can bleed his 7th period into flex time, and he has now essentially a hour and 15-minute band period, which even if it's a student that has a 7th period, they can now get flexed to band and join them for the last half hour of whatever the practice is. So now he has longer time, so he's getting more time with most of his kids in this schedule than he would have before. Like she says,
Yeah. For your lunches, is it just gonna be like randomly assigned amongst your group? It's not gonna be like, I'm assuming 6th graders and 8th graders could be mixed. and
So
7th graders
we
could
have
be
2 different, so right now, currently, at Maple Avenue, I get 3 lunches. A lunch is all 6th grade, and then B lunch and C lunch are combined 7th and 8th. So we talked about it both ways here, and I'm just not sure how it'll shake out. You probably have a better sense than I do. No, I think we did talk about this actually. I think we said, okay, so pretend 6th grade all goes to A lunch, or they could all go to B lunch, it doesn't matter. They all go to 1 lunch. There would have to be 7th and 8th graders in there, just so that we don't overfill the other period. Now, whether we decide to like designate tables, like these are only 6th grade tables, and the rest of the cafeteria is for 7 and 8, and then the other lunch being 7 and 8. I forgot we talked about that in order to keep them balanced, because if we only allow 126th graders into A lunch and that be it, then every other kid in middle school is in B lunch.
And high school will just be totally mixed.
essentially, yep. And it's just so easy to move. That's what's so nice about it. It's so easy to move. And then we will be larger, but what we can do is we can get some incentives to seniors and such, because we will have a beautiful courtyard that's fenced in and locked that kids can go out, and if I have an adult out there to monitor, can go out and eat lunch out there as long as weather permits and the things, so we can lessen some of the numbers out there. I can't have everybody go, all right? So I might make it a senior situation where they're, because they're seniors, it's a privilege of getting to go out, whatever I do. But we can utilize that the same way that she could have if students perform well or whatever it is, an incentive for them to go out and eat in the courtyard.
While you all are here, another topic or two that parents related to this because these are problems that happen more often in high school and middle school. Cell phones. What's our current state of how we are
Dr. Moy, I'm gonna put you on the
regulating cell
spot.
phones?
I'm gonna put you on the spot.
Yeah,
You just visited Maple Avenue for about 2 hours. How
Yeah.
many cell phones did you see?
yeah, I've done 2 long walkthrough observations in probably about 15 to 18 classrooms. I don't remember seeing a student with a cell phone.
Now, I'm not gonna sit here and tell you that teachers don't have to say to kids, put away your cell phone here and there, but by and large, it's truly not a problem.
I don't know that you can.
No, I did not say
that.
that.
in high school.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't say that. I would never say that. What I would say is,
You tell them to put it away, they put it away.
yeah, I am truly a believer in, I'm not one of these people that we should get bags and have them lock it away and do the things that they do in certain places. I don't truly believe in those things. So right now, it is expected to be away during instructional time. I would support the teachers when they have problems, if they have them. I would really, what it comes down to, and I don't mean this to be curt, but the stronger the teacher, the less problem they tend to have with those situations, the better lessons that you have running, the things that are happening, the less issues you have with it, right? So I think I would always challenge everybody to have exciting things for the students to do and make them enjoy their time, and you won't fight it, right? And have strong stance in the beginning of your year. They are supported and when they need. It is very rare that we get brought to a classroom, meaning Mr. Preetz or I, based on cell phone problems. But I think we do have some, I don't believe that it is our sole responsibility to teach responsibility to high school students, don't get me wrong. We're there to teach the content, but while we're doing it, I think they're going to leave that place and they need to have an understanding there are times where it can't be out. I'm not on it right now, right? If I'm not checking my email or checking my whatever right now, even though I don't have social media, I'm not checking things. Because it's an important place to be and I need to be focused on what I'm doing and they need to learn those things. So I think as long as they have them and do it, I am a firm believer that that's part of our responsibility as well. So I would say, again, it depends on who we talk about and which classroom you're speaking of. So yes, would it be more common up there than down? Yeah, I think so. But I've also seen, I'm going in, if I do walkthroughs, sometimes it'll be people, like, I think it's smart, teachers sometimes, they'll teach for 20 minutes and say, take 2 minutes, take a look at it, because there are notifications, if you've ever seen these kids and they ever said it. The rare occasions I take them away, I can't believe they don't look at it more. Because it's like, there's constant notifications going, I don't know how they do it, right? So if they look at it for 1 minute, you got 1 minute just to check and it alleviates their anxiety and they get back to what they're doing, it tends to work, believe it or not, it's just that quick. And you just reel them back into what you're doing and people generally do pretty good. I don't have a great answer for you, other than it's the responsibility of the teacher in the classroom to set their expectation and deliver solid instruction so that it's not an issue.
So I think I know the answer based on that to my next question, but you all, is there any support that you need from us as a board, in terms of, from on the policy level, to help you all with anything like that?
I don't currently feel that need. I would certainly be happy to voice it if I said, hey, we've gotten to the point. I shudder to say this, but I think we crested a little bit with the kids, like all the things that were added in the social media and the things like when I taught, I'm getting old enough that it's been a while since I've been in the classroom, we're talking like 12 to 15 years. I had no problems with it because that's the way I didn't have issues with. When I was in a health room where I was teaching, I didn't have discipline problems. It was just something I was solid at. So, but again, it's a different animal there for a while when they started, the phones were different, right? What they can do. I think we pressed it a little bit. But the next big thing could be coming with it, so you never know. So if that were to occur, I'd be happy to say we need to look into it and ask for help. But right now, maybe everybody in my school would say the same thing, but I think Mr. Preetz and I would be my answer.
The second thing was AI, artificial intelligence. That's something that we're definitely going to be looking to do a dive in on policy this year. And we can have continuous conversations with both of you, Judy and I, in terms of your thoughts on what we need to do from that standpoint. And I won't put you on the spot tonight either. Are any remarks you want to make?
No, I'm not prepared to share anything out loud, but we have been talking about it continually as an admin team too, because it's on the horizon.
Yeah.
Actually, it's here, right, but we need to maybe think about.
I did about a 5-hour virtual meeting. There were about 50 people on it, I guess, from Pennsylvania areas and such, and it was regarding AI. And I have a ton of materials that I brought back from that, so when we get into those conversations, I'd be happy to be involved and would love to be involved with some of that. And the things that are there, not that I'm any expert by any stretch, but have a lot of materials that I brought back from that. And I think us leveraging the positive side instructionally is what needs to be, we need to remind ourselves as well. So right now, those students that didn't have an instructor at home with them and couldn't get facts and learn things and do things, has them run with them at all times now. So if we think about it only in the negative, if they're gonna use it to cheat, we can also think of it, they also have an instructor in their home based on that and the continued development on it that has never been around for any of us. So when I went home and I had to do algebra that I didn't understand in 8th grade, I was stuck till I got back to the teacher the next day and I sat there and did it wrong the entire time. Whereas if I can get something that would instruct me appropriately and they continue to develop this to do it, we need to look at it and be able to understand how to leverage the positive sides of it, is what I would say. I think if we do that, students look at it differently.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we want to have you guys as part of those conversations as we go forward, because it's definitely a piece of technology. It's probably going to be the most consequential technology of possibly our lifetimes.
Yes.
And so,
Arguably already is.
yeah, and so we need to sort of get, I think we're already behind the 8 ball from a policy perspective and a legislative perspective. And I think that we definitely need to jump into that and put the appropriate guardrail so that students and staff and our society is using it in the appropriate manner. So, thank you all very much. Any questions from the board?
No, I think that's great to include them, because you guys are with our students, you're with them, you know, so we can come up with something, but it's great to have people that are in the building with the students to give feedback and be a part of that.
Yeah.
If you would at some point share your information that you get in the.
Oh yeah, whenever we need to. Yeah, I did. So I just was taking everything they did. I was just down, just trying to take everything and throw it in folders, and I was ready, and then we had a conversation. And I can think of multiple teachers that right now I think would be smart for me to bring as well, and that are even more in the trenches in the classroom with them, that they would be able to speak to it and how they handle it already.
Well, thank you all so much for the update on the secondary school. Similar topic here, to just go over a review of the 2026-2027 academic calendar. So I'm going to go over the clip notes from Judy. This, I believe, is pretty much the same calendar for the most part as we've reviewed before, with the exception of December 22nd is now in discussion. So we're gonna let kids out early that day before Christmas break, and that's what that's going to be. Other than that, we're looking at a August 24th start to the school year. That's pretty much the week later than when the normal start. We're bringing in staff for those 3 in-service days that week before. That gives them more time than the traditional 2 that's right before. That's typically it's been a Monday, Tuesday, and they start on Wednesday. So that gives them 3 days collectively as a staff, and then they get a weekend, additional time to prepare, and then they can come in fresh on Monday. In addition to this, to that start, the kindergarten team, Mr. Moran and Dr. Berryman are going to be working on a possible proposal for a soft start for kindergarten that would look something possibly like half coming in on Monday, half coming in on Tuesday, then everybody in on Wednesday, or some kind of soft start. But they're going to work through that. That's not something that we have to approve as part of the calendar. They can just get that together on an elementary kindergarten level and communicate that out to kindergarten families. And I think that for the moment we're graduating on May 26th, on Wednesday, with the 27th being the in-service day. After we started doing that, we have a wrap-up day after last day of school for teachers to come in and wrap up the year, so it's not, we're trying to do that as students are still in the building and all of that, we're doing it in for that. And we're graduating on the 26th, which is for Memorial Day this year. So, any questions on the calendar as it is?
No, I think it looks great, and I appreciate that they went back and looked at some of the ideas and we went forward.
Awesome. So do we have the committee's approval to move this forward to the full board for vote?
Yes.
Thank you very much. On to policy. Very little changes to it. I have the summary is here, but, and then I'll let, is 600s have to do either way.
Yeah, there's still very minor.
So I'll do the 300s and I'll do the 600s. But the 300s, tobacco and vaping, 323, and controlled substance abuse, 351. We just made the appropriate selections under all the sections based on the existing Littlestown policies. There were no significant changes to 323, under 351, employee reporting if they have been convicted of a felony and their termination under this policy. Any questions about either of those? Okay, and then, and all, I'll let Tom go through this.
So, I believe on the summary, 607 tuition, it just changes the frequency in which we bill a tuition. That's just the change on that. 621, the local taxpayer bill of rights, is a new policy that we currently didn't have as part of the PSV book that we should have had. It just spells out what the taxpayers have in terms of rights in lieu of their real estate taxes. So if somebody would ever have a dispute, it tells them like what guidelines they do, what they follow, go through that dispute process. We have never, to my knowledge, had a dispute that we couldn't handle internally that we had to go through additional steps to get to that point. But it's just there so people can understand what they're eligible to do if they would get to that level. GASB 34, that is our fixed assets that links with the audit. That says what our threshold is for what we claim for depreciation for our assets. So we get some of that nuance that we get to be able to do with Littlestown. We currently match what our policy is in a way. The big change was textbooks, because they're mostly digital now. There's no physical textbooks that claim digital, so those are coming off. That's a big change. And then that can be reviewed every year. The threshold went from 5,000 to 10,000. That's kind of a recommendation is based on how much stuff costs. 5,000 is really low, captures too much. 10,000 is more appropriate for the stick number. So that's that migration up over time. And that's kind of the big two changes in that. And then what was on the 626.1? I can't remember quite what change.
We just made the appropriate selections based on.
Yeah, I think there's just minor wording changes, and then what is qualified in your federal programs, if I remember correctly, without, yeah, I don't specifically, like, we looked at this last week, there wasn't a whole lot, it was just minor wording changes about the stipulations of who qualifies to be reimbursed federal dollars for travel. It's just some stronger wording, it's more loose wording, I think it's just stronger wording about what you have to do to be qualified. Very minor changes, a lot of just wording changes, procedure changes. The biggest changes, 621 we should have had, we just didn't. We're piggybacking on PSV, it just sets those guidelines.
Any questions on any of the policies? Very simple. Approve everyone's, moving forward to the full board.
Yes.
All right. Is there any other business to be brought before the committee?
Well, since Dr. is not here tonight, I guess, hopefully she'll be on Monday, she's talking all about a couple things. I guess I can wait until Monday to ask her, or send an email to her.
that's the case, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Second. That's
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We're adjourned.